basically the principle that underpin the powers of a government is the fact that the government draws its legitimacy from the fact that the larger society supports the government. So if you go for an election and somebody is elected, that person gains legitimacy because it is deemed that that person would have achieved the support of the larger society of the society, the larger support of the society. So therefore, you see, people have you have to win 50% plus one. Once you do that, it is deemed that you have the support of majority of that society, and therefore you can act on their behalf. So the power then now, they say, resides in the people. Now, the other side of the flip coin is that in the exercise of your functions or your powers, the only condition under which you will be able to legitimately exercise your powers is the fact that those decisions that you take benefit majority or the larger society as well, and that your conduct or your decisions that benefit a few cannot be justified because then it infringes on the principle that gives you the legitimacy. So, electoral commission, by that principle, is supposed to act in the interest of the larger society. So now, in this case, the society is Ghana, for example, and the people are Ghanaians. So, if the electoral commission wants to act, the only power that gives them, the only issue that gives them power to act on behalf of the society is that decision that they take in their office will benefit the larger society. But in a civilized world, you can't go and count, okay, this society, this decision that EC is taking, let's count how many Ghanaians support this. You can't do that in any civilized society. That's why they have institutions like parliament. Those parliamentarians draw their powers directly from the population, from Ghanaians. And because they are voted by the people from whatever political divide you belong to, Parliament constitutes the official representation of the society. Therefore, if you are saying you are taking a decision that benefits the larger society, the only way you can measure the larger society in Ghana is through Parliament. So if Parliament then tells you that this action that you are trying to take, we do not support it, and that you must go back and do A, B, C, D, because that's what we consider to be beneficial to the larger society, and you go back and you say Parliament is just expressing their opinion, then you do not understand even how the EC itself derives its powers. That is exactly what I was trying to explain.
So to you, this is not even about whether Parliament even has the power to do that. It's about testing the popularity and also the propriety of what you're doing.
It's actually defining the legality of the EC's action, because you see, there's a reason why philosophically in every part of the world, people's representation are given the power to take laws, because anytime you want to take decisions in government, you can't go back to 31 million people to ask them for their permission. Okay, it's practically impossible. Therefore, the people have elected representatives who are supposed to make these decisions on their behalf. So for your decision to be legal, even for the government itself to derive its legitimacy, it has to go to the people to get 51% of the population to say, yes, we support that you form the government. So therefore, for electoral commission conduct to be legal, they have to now gauge whether or not, by that principle, that decision is accepted by the larger society. And since they cannot go back to the larger society like Ghanaians, every citizen to ask them whether this decision is acceptable or not, the principle has always been that they go to the elected representatives of the people who have been mandated, voted for by the entire nation to be the ones to intercede on their behalf on matters of this nature. So anybody who doubts the powers of Parliament does not understand the legality of their action. Is basically what I'm trying to say. So if an electoral commissioner says, I don't care, Parliament is just expressing its opinion, it's just an agency, they don't understand where Parliament derives its powers from, and they don't understand the philosophy that underpins how state institutions get their powers to make decisions.
Additionally, these are political actors. They will be elected using the same CI. Whatever you do with that CI would ultimately affect them too.
Absolutely. And you see, to be honest with you, when it comes to matters of this nature, I see the EC always like to take this combative stance against anybody. Okay, you see their posturing against the NDC when the NDC has concerns. You see it against the other political parties. But you see, the truth is that when it comes to political engagement with the citizens, the political parties have more engagement with the citizens than the Electoral Commission. Therefore, they seem to know and understand the position of voters and Ghanaians when it comes to such decisions that affect elections. And the EC is just a few, the EC Commission is just a few members. Do you understand what I'm saying? Look at the size of Parliament as an institution. Compare that to the Electoral Commission. And imagine the capacity of people who are in Parliament against the size and capacity of people in Parliament against the size and capacity of people in the Electoral Commission. And ask yourself a very simple question. Which of these two institutions, based on practical contact with voters and in the electorate and the election, and which of these two institutions is better placed to advise on electoral matters? This is a common sense argument. Forget even the legality. So Parliament is best suited because they have come from that election process. They engage with voters on daily basis. They have been empowered by citizens to intercede and make decisions on their behalf because they cannot be contacted on daily basis for their consent for agencies like the Electoral Commission to take certain decisions. Therefore, to belittle the position of Parliament is a very serious issue. And it is just, if it comes from someone like an electoral commissioner, then you can even be more alarmed because people seem to be acting without understanding where they derive their powers from. The Electoral Commission derives its powers from laws. Those laws are passed by Parliament, but the laws are respected because it is deemed to have been passed by the elected representatives of Ghanaians. That is what gives legitimacy to the laws that Parliament passed. So if you go before Parliament to ask for something, and Parliament comes back to you and say that, listen, the thing that you have asked us, per our interaction with the people of Ghana who have mandated us to take these decisions, you need to do A, B, C, D. And you come back and say, well, they're just expressing their opinion. Okay, they're expressing their opinion that represents the opinion of 31 million people. Consider that against 6 commissioners or 7 commissioners. The opinions of the people on whose wishes that the Electoral Commission itself exists. Okay, so if you question the place of Parliament, it is not by accident that the law requests Electoral Commission to go before the people's representatives. Even the government, the president of Ghana, when he wants to spend money in this country, he has to go to the people's representatives because it is deemed that those people have the power to act on behalf of the nation, of the citizens. So you have to go to Parliament for Parliament to agree that the people who pay taxes, the Ghanaians, their representatives have agreed that they will fund this budget and that this budget will now become legitimate because the people's representatives have agreed that government can spend this amount of money. So even the executive that is placed at the height of our democracy has to go to Parliament, submit itself to Parliament in order to have certain decisions become legitimate. And it is the reason why the president can be impeached by only Parliament, because the president gets his legitimacy by the larger society, which is the 50 plus 1%. That 50 plus 1%, when he, because of that, he has to go to the people's representatives. If they have to remove him, majority of the people's representatives must be able to say that this conduct is meritorious of impeachment, therefore we remove you from office. So if you belittle Parliament in a democracy, you belittle the people. That's basically what the argument is.
Great. That's clear. Thank you on that point. But before I let you go, I want to just take your opinion on something. This one attracted the attention of Nancy. It's about...
How is Nancy?
Nancy is fine. It's about research that's been undertaken by the Department of Communication of the University of Ghana in collaboration with the Media Foundation for West Africa. I know there are two things. You've not only been a practitioner as a journalist, you've done investigations. You also at one point was a media owner yourself. This is the research that was conducted by the Communications Department of the University of Ghana. There's this point about ownership that they comment on in their State of Ghanaian Media report. They actually concluded that the media was actually concentrated in a few powerful hands. And this is a quote. Quote, "We find the political capture of the broadcast media space in particular, and in the increasing concentration of the media in a few hands, as worrying for the country's democracy, and there's the need to address the situation." Watching from outside, do you agree with this finding?
Absolutely. So, and the danger itself, the danger it portends, Sana, I can tell you something, and this is something that really bothers me a lot. If you look at our electoral map, okay, when you look at the population of media in a few of the urban centers, you realize that a particular party, anytime they win elections from those centers, the rest of the nation doesn't matter anymore. So what it tells you is that there is concentration of media in a particular, even the concentration of media in a particular geographical area could influence could influence the decisions and minds of voters in a democracy. In the case of Ghana, it is true. It evolved from a very different scenario, though. In the past, you had the situation where businessmen were not interested in investing in the media, obviously because they felt that criticizing government and all those things came at a cost. Therefore, the businesses shied away from investing in the media landscape, and so the media tended to be owned by the media practitioners themselves. That, in my opinion, wasn't a best case scenario either. Then we have evolved to the situation where now, I think what maybe the research did not even say is the fact that now media ownership is owned by politicians. A lot of them are politicians or affiliated with political parties. Therefore, what they are doing basically is that they seem to be propagating the agenda of a certain political group. And so you have majority that is owned by businesses now that are aligned to different political parties. And for that reason, there's no proper objective information and education of the populace. And so I do agree, except to add that the ownership is actually now more in the hands of politicians and business executives that are affiliated with politicians. That is what maybe the research fails to add. But aside from that, I agree with it.
Well, because there's a quote even from what Professor Gajepo said. Political forces behind broadcast media ownership mean that partisan actors and government can control public discourse, and this is no good for our democracy. Is that necessarily true?
Yes, I agree with that, and I didn't even know that's exactly the point I was making. That if you look at the media landscape now, it's obvious that the NPP controls a lot of the broadcast media. And because they control a lot of the broadcast media in the urban centers, when they win a few urban centers, they almost win the national election. Okay? And in a country where geography is important, it's as important as population, that is very worrying because now you have power, a certain kind of power that influences the minds of voters now in the hands of a few political actors. You saw the consequences of that in, I think, 2020, where once all of them begins to say, "Oh, this person has won the election," it tends to influence the mindset of the population. That even when you have a case, it is almost impossible for you to prosecute your explanation or defense, because once majority of the media houses say, "Oh, this person has lost," per our calculation, this person has lost. That's it. You don't have any chance unless by the time you end up going to court, public opinion is already against you, and it's a very, very difficult scenario. Apart from the fact that those who have to traverse the length and breadth of, especially parties like the NDC, whose voters are spread across the nation, they have to do a lot more legwork. They need more resources. They need to visit almost every part of the country to be able to win elections. But the combination of politics and the media ownership and the formation of public opinion in urban centers, as you know, there are more and more people moving from the hinterland to urban areas. So whoever controls public opinion in the urban centers politically will always benefit in elections. So when you take all of that together and you add the fact that when they decide to conspire against one political party, it always makes it very difficult for them. Then you will agree with the research finding that this is pretty very worrying.
And then let me put two things together. The first one is from the position of ownership for profit. This is what that was the finding. Generally, many organizations in Ghana are not profitable. They are at best breaking even and cannot fund investigative reports because of the costs involved. Let me jump then to the working conditions of those in the media. Here's the daily graphic. In terms of working conditions of the media, the study found that journalists worked in precarious conditions, with some of them working without any contract or receiving salary at all. The report further revealed that most media organizations had poor recruitment practices, with some of them hiring journalists without advertising for qualified people to apply. Even worse, it was found that many media establishments did not have any structured remuneration system with conditions of service based on who brought you. Professor Gajepo said it was discovered that in most of the media houses, there was no clear-cut promotion mechanisms. Furthermore, the report found that salaries of journalists were shockingly low, averaging 1,000 Ghana cedis, while some of them received 500 or no pay at all. Quote, this situation is promoting the culture of soli, where journalists take money in the name of transport fare. Is this remarkably different from what you experienced when you were a journalist?
Well, I mean, first of all, we have to also understand the reality that the media landscape has changed considerably. Unfortunately, the media ownerships have not been able to adapt to the rate at which the media landscape is changing. As you know, we have social media now. It's actually a kind of media. And those are not, it is more of the crowdsourced media where users decide what content to generate instead of the reverse, which is the professional media where professionally trained people decide what content to publish. So the media landscape is changing considerably. if you look at the world now, the biggest media houses now are institutions like Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and the rest. They constitute the biggest media now, albeit not the professional media. They constitute content generation. So, but the interesting thing is that they make money. They make money because they have the numbers, and businesses like to go to media houses that have the numbers to advertise their product to the larger society. So it is the reason why they have the numbers. The media landscape in Ghana has not been able, or around the world, have not been able to match that kind of influence from the social media side. And so it is why a lot of the media houses are not profitable. That is a fact. For us, when I used to run the Enquirer, it was very, very difficult, but it was a miracle. It was a miracle that the Enquirer, against all odds, without any advertising, was still managing to break even. Okay, purely on circulation, and that was very, very remarkable compared to the history of what was happening. In respect of salaries, I think they couldn't have said it better. When I used to work at the Enquirer, for example, the only reason why I could eke out a decent living was because I used to consult on the side for, even at that young age, for Kroll and Associates. So I'll get gigs on the side, travel, go and do investigations for other organizations. In exchange, I got more considerable remuneration, which could last me several months than my salary. So I was able to sort of supplement that with the salary. For the salary from the beginning is almost nothing. It almost looks as if they are doing you a favor by recruiting you. Consider the fact that even at that time, Chronicle was the best place to work when I started journalism. Even Chronicle, it was not the best case. But within the media landscape, Chronicle tended to be a lot more resourceful. The other point for me is the fact that salaries are very low. In fact, salaries are very low. And worst of it, you'll be lucky if your salary even comes on time. I think a lot of media houses, what is ironical is the fact that journalists will go out there and be reporting about how people are not being paid Social Security, they are not being paid, workers agitating over their salary and remuneration. But in their own backyard, they probably have not been paid several months, or their salary is in arrears, or for several months, or in some places, years, or their salary, even when it is paid, is woefully inadequate. And these are people that you are talking about temptations of corruption. Okay, people are in trouble, and they are willing to pay any amount of money to get out of that trouble. And the man who hasn't been paid for several months is expected to go hungry whilst adhering to ethical standards. That is a very difficult position to put journalists. And so I from day one, I have always opted not to take Solly or transport when I started journalism. I was lucky. I will probably say I was a little bit of the exception. But for some journalists, it is almost impossible for them to do their work on daily basis if they don't have the opportunity to be transported in and out by the same people who have invited them, and are expected to have an objective view of these people. And they are the same people who organize car, bring you, transport you. It's just ridiculous. And so I think, in a nutshell, it is even worse that even when the salaries are paid, it is just nothing to write home about. That is, if you're lucky enough to get paid. It's not for every media house, but for a lot of them.